quiero volver a dejar mi recuerdo por Charlie Kirk, darles gracias a todos por estar presentes, que Dios los bendiga a todos, que las fuerzas del cielo nos acompañen y ¡viva la libertad, carajo!
That was a good speech. You know, I think he was thinking a lot about Charlie during that speech. He mentioned him 3 times, which is why he was pretty somber. Definitely not as animated or lively as he usually is. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 376. He's we're going to watch Javier Milei's speech at CPAC Paraguay. This was on the 16th of September. Milei was at CPAC in Paraguay. You know, I still have not gotten a good person from Paraguay on this show, so I'm hoping to get that. By the way, Aaron, it seems like Gloria Alvarez is saying a lot of shit about Milei. Do you know what's up with that?
Well, the problem was that just like there are divisions within American libertarians,
yes,
divisions within Latino libertarians, and one of the main distinctions is that the Gloria group, if you want to see it, which will be the same. What's the name of this later?
Antonella Marti, yes.
Those guys were more into, say, classical liberalism and the kind of like modernistic kind of thing. A lot of they want to promote a lot of the progressive agenda. And so when Milei did what we call the alliance with the right wingers,
yes,
positive right wingers, they were like terrified because in their circles, society should go in the opposite direction of traditional marriage, traditional views of everything. You know what I mean? Traditional man-female relationship. They have to move away from that, and that's what's cool in their circles. And in their circles includes people that are not libertarian, but they want to reach out to them, and they tend to be usually either on the left or in some type of postmodern centrist.
Yes. So, for example, an issue like abortion is big for them.
Exactly.
They want to abortion, yes.
Exactly. So from then on, she started. It gets super interesting. If you ever heard of Axel Kaiser, he's the Milei type of from Chile. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Oh yeah, Axel's been on this show twice. Yeah, Axel's a good man.
There you go. Oh, there you go. He's the one that, I mean, he probably won't tell you what I tell you just because he's too nice. But
yeah, you've brought this up before. Yes.
He what?
You've mentioned this before on this show. Yeah, it's just funny. I've noticed Gloria and some other people have been, Yeah. So anyway, we're going to go to one of the more conservative countries in South America, perhaps the most conservative, where they still have, they still have birth rates above replacement in Paraguay. So maybe it's worth.
Wasn't it Bolivia the one that?
No, he's at CPAC Paraguay.
No, but I think the birth rate. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think they're both pretty. Yeah, they're both pretty high. It's it's a.
Bolivia is 2.58. Yeah, Paraguay is 2. Yeah, oh, wow.
Paraguay is 2.4. Also, Honduras is 2.45. Yes, so it's nice to see.
You know which one's my favorite?
What?
Venezuela. It's a 2.09.
Yes.
Pretty bottom. Wow.
Well, I wonder where some of these countries are going to end up. It's nobody's having kids, so let's go watch. We're going to watch Milei at CPAC in Paraguay. This was the Conservative Political Action Conference, and they've been nice enough to.
I will definitely. I'm going to tune off the audio just in case there's some feedback. And so whatever we need to communicate, we can do the chat room. You told me about the chat room.
Yes, we'll use the chat. The chat works very well, so here's Milei at CPAC. They got this nice big blue background. Everybody's standing up. Let's go. This is 33 minutes.
Hola a todos. Y si no, no soy yo. En primer lugar, quiero comenzar recordando a Charlie Kirk, uno de los mejores divulgadores de las ideas de la libertad, un referente que nunca le dio la espalda al debate abierto. Su muerte no debe paralizarnos. Tenemos la obligación de seguir al frente y no claudicar en la batalla por las ideas. Tarde o temprano, el bien y la verdad triunfarán. Dicho esto, me pone muy contento estar hoy aquí junto a todos ustedes. Me alegro mucho de que CPAC, la cumbre derechista más importante del planeta, haya llegado a Paraguay y espero que pronto esté presente en toda Sudamérica, dando la batalla cultural a lo largo y a lo ancho del continente. En Argentina comenzamos a celebrar la cumbre de CPAC desde el año pasado, en una jornada verdaderamente histórica para las ideas de la libertad de nuestro país y que esperamos con ansias poder repetir o incluso superar.
I do got to point out that this was 5 days or 6 days after Charlie Kirk got shot, and he starts off by honoring Charlie Kirk. I don't know how close they were, but obviously they did know each other. That's a good start. The audience also seems to be very quiet in this thing. Milei looks kind of somber here. I think maybe he really considered Charlie a friend. What do you think, Ááron?
My absolute guess is that they were not. Oh, that's such a good question. I'm gonna get no right. That's what I'm gonna say. One of the things that would affect him a lot is because they were trying to make a comparison, so they would explain people, because not everyone in Argentina or South America is fully familiar with Charlie Kirk like they're in the United States. So they were trying to make the comparison. So they would say, well, he will be kind of like there's a guy named Gordo Dan. That's his nickname.
Oh yeah, I know Gordo Dan. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were saying if you want to understand who Charlie Kirk was, he would be like the American version of Gordo. And Gordo Dan has been with Milei since ever. He's kind of like a rugby player, which will be like a football player for our context. And he has always been after it. He has some pretty cool views because he says he's actually pro-immigration because he says, Gordo Dan, he says, I'm an international right-winger. He says, I think every good person in the world should actually come to Argentina, do business in Argentina, go back and forth, but they have to have our values. That's kind of like his point. There's nothing wrong wherever you're coming from, but your behavior, your attitudes should actually match what we do. I don't care about what your ethnicity is, what your nationality, your place of birth, whatever. As long as you're consistent with Argentinian traditional values, respect others, respect property, respect tradition, you're more than welcome to be our friend and to work together, because that's kind of like the whole point of Milei being smart enough to not just reach out to the right in his own country, but pretty much reach out to the right internationally, is that you can't beat the left because the left has no problems cooperating across borders without a problem. If the right, like, we can only cooperate with people around nation because we're super nationalists, okay, but then you're giving up tremendous amount of resources, ideas, support, so on and so forth. And what happened with Trump helping out right now, there was will be an exchange rate crisis. It truly does let you know that he was right all along. You have to reach out and make as large as possible. Large alliances, that will be the proper word. Despite the fact that you might not agree with everything with the other side, you do agree with them a lot more than you agree with people on the left. And that's one of the reasons why Gloria and people like that in South America have actually been against Milei, because they were like, you cannot, no matter what, you cannot ever cooperate with any right winger at all, because culturally speaking, they're very different. But guess what? Today we have shown that no, actually it's a pretty good idea to actually get along with right wingers, because no matter what, right wingers do have resources, and we can share with them those political resources. And so that they were totally proven wrong. The thing is, they really don't care about the economy and society as a whole as much as they care about, you know how they call it, like coffee libertarians or coffee shop libertarians.
Yes, sometimes I sometimes call them silver spoon socialists. So, yeah, cafe libertarians. I know what you were saying. Yeah, and also I do want to point out we're doing this on Charlie Kirk, what would have been Charlie Kirk's 32nd birthday. And also, I forgot to mention this video is coming from Oficina del Presidente, which has all the speeches from the presidents. That's the YouTube channel we're on. So,
and I think Charlie Kirk spoke very positively on Milei, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
and Charlie Kirk always invited libertarians to anything he would organize. He would always have libertarians around. He was a Big Ten guy, and we have to respect him for that.
Yes. Okay, let's continue. Yeah.
Gracias a Soledad Cedro, CEO regional de CPAC, por haberme invitado. Y también gracias a todos los que han venido a escucharme. Es siempre un privilegio para mí aprovechar cada ocasión para llevar las ideas de la libertad a todos los rincones del planeta. Quiero comenzar diciendo que Paraguay es un ejemplo de lo que hay que hacer en materia económica, tanto para mi país como para el resto de Sudamérica. Hace décadas eligieron abrazar las ideas de la libertad y como consecuencia han logrado que la inflación sea cosa del pasado, sumado a que no han dejado de crecer en los últimos 20 años. Y gracias al régimen de Maquila han sabido explorar su industria local al máximo, incrementando las exportaciones y generando puestos de trabajo genuinos. Su experiencia es prueba fehaciente de que cuando las regulaciones acompañan y no estorban, cuando los impuestos son bajos y no ahogan, la capacidad de los países para comercializar crece, creando más bienes y servicios de mejor calidad a un mejor precio. En cambio, nosotros en Argentina, que tan solo estamos a una frontera de distancia, durante los últimos 20 años hemos hecho todo de manera diametralmente opuesta. Montamos un estado elefantiásico con un gasto público enorme. Tomamos deuda con todos los agentes del mercado existentes a los que luego terminaríamos defolteando. Una vez perdida la capacidad crediticia, emitimos peso de forma descontrolada para financiar tanto gasto y sumado a expropiaciones sin sentido, corrupción con la obra pública y un sinfín de calamidades, crecer como país se volvió algo literalmente imposible. De hecho, hay una frase muy contundente que solía utilizar Milton Friedman y que se lo planteaba siempre a sus alumnos extranjeros cuando les preguntaba sobre algo y le decía primero los datos. O sea, ¿qué dicen los datos? Bueno, en esto los datos son categóricos. Los resultados están a la vista. Entre el año 2012 y el 2024, Paraguay creció a una tasa anual compuesta del 3,1%, mientras que Argentina decreció al ritmo del 0,1% anual en el mismo periodo. Es decir, que en términos per cápita, les diría que estamos casi un 15% abajo, un retroceso verdaderamente aterrador. De hecho, cuando nosotros llegamos al gobierno, la pobreza, digamos, cuando se corregía por lo que tiene que ver con los controles de precios y el sinceramiento de las variables, era del 57%. La inflación corría al 1,5% diario y obviamente teníamos además grandes problemas financieros en el Banco Central y en el Tesoro, y el déficit fiscal consolidado era de 15 puntos del PBI. Pero más allá, digamos, de la calamidad en que se encontraba la economía argentina al momento en el cual nosotros llegamos al poder, ya veníamos también cometiendo muchísimos errores desde tiempo atrás. Es más, los argentinos incluso desperdiciamos la oportunidad de nuestras vidas cuando nos opusimos al ALCA en el año 2005, en lo que hubiese sido el acuerdo de libre comercio más grande y beneficioso de nuestra historia. Un tremendo error que terminamos pagando muy caro más tarde, pero que solo no perjudicó a Argentina, sino que también al resto de la región al impedir que el acuerdo prosperara entre las demás naciones. Gracias a Dios, hace 2 años los argentinos eligieron cambiar. Decidieron decirle basta a la miseria y en diciembre de 2023 eligieron como presidente a un liberal libertario para poner...
He's just been talking about, Argentina versus Paraguay for the last 20 years. Paraguay has grown, but Argentina has went backward. What do you think, Aaron?
I'm not completely sure because I never seen it. I mean, this is just so you guys know. I know a lot about Ecuador because Ecuador is dollarized. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Since Ecuador is dollarized, I was making the comparisons. And Ecuador himself, that he doesn't even mention, which is pretty interesting. I think he should mention them also. Well, I guess he was in Paraguay, so I would remember.
Yeah.
If you compare from the moment of dollarization until now, proportionally speaking, Ecuador grew like crazy. If Argentina had followed the same path, right now they would be by far the biggest per capita nation in South America. They're a big country and all that, but by far you notice, to give you some example, let's say Ecuador grew, let's say, 20% from 2000 forward, when Argentina will grow, let's say, 10% or less, like 7 overall, which is super, super small, but somewhere around there. Now, Paraguay, I know very little because since they're not dollarized, but it's similar to Peru. They're not big countries. Their economies are not super big, but they have the proper management of their monetary system, where politicians cannot get involved in their system by not having politicians get involved in when it comes to inflation. Whenever they want to do something crazy, even like defaulting. This has happened. It does not affect absolutely everyone. It just affects the government. Why? Because it is noticeable for investors that one thing is how would I say it? Oh, just because the government is bad doesn't mean that the rest of the nation is bad. It's just that specific institution is doing that. But when you have sufficient separation between money and the state, whatever mistakes that the state does, they do not affect the rest of society as that, because people can say, okay, one thing is the government doing X, another one is private people doing it's also they're just not the same thing, and that helps a lot when it comes to like stability. The government can go crazy, and although it's not pretty, it's still investors are like, oh, that's fine, you can invest privately, and it will be. It's not as ideal, but definitely. It's there's a meaningful difference between the private and the government sector. Now in Argentina, what's the big deal is that there has since the 50s, maybe in the 90s there was an exception, but the government and the private were completely merged simply because almost everyone wanted more and more intervention from the government, even in private decisions. I'm not talking about just like I don't know, producing one of the hilarious ones is not just producing bicycles that nobody wants. I don't know how you call this one, but do you remember that there was something roaming around in Argentina? From Argentina, there was a business that produces, in Spanish we call it canicas, which is little balls where you play. I don't know how you call it. You know,
I really don't know what you're talking about at all.
Some old kids toy that we used to use in the 90s and 80s, which is some little balls that we cannot play with them. They hit each other. They're made out of glass. So it's like a kid's
marbles.
Marbles. There you go. Okay, marbles. Nobody uses them anymore. But in Argentina, they were still producing them because the government was completely subsidizing. Even when they didn't sell, they would just cover everything so that it would continue. So, and they were complaining that since Milei, marbles were not doing well, and they said they're not doing well because nobody wants them. For the last 10, 15 years, you've been depending upon literally. It was more like a department of the government that was producing random stuff that nobody wants, just to make sure that people have a job. So that's how bad it was. Imagine, like, it was so merged that people cannot really distinguish between in Argentina. That's the big issue in Argentina. Most people cannot really distinguish between the private and the government sector. For them, they're pretty much the same. How do you get? Imagine when you say, "Oh, I'm going to privatize this." Like, wait, what? But everything is the state. How dare you do that? So those are the cognitive problems or cultural problems that Milei has to face since he started being a public figure, and more so now that he's the president. So, because nobody understands what a private life truly is. You know what?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I think kids really don't play with marbles much anymore, and sometimes I wonder if it's just because kids always end up swallowing them accidentally. Marbles are just they're not they don't kids used to, but kids are so much more into electronic stuff too. It's anyway. Exactly. Let's keep going. Yeah.
En práctica un proceso de profunda reforma que a esta altura ya se pedía a gritos. Y gracias a ese mandato que nos comprometimos a cumplir a rajatabla, pusimos en marcha un plan de orden fiscal, monetario y cambiario que empezó a rendir importantes frutos. Básicamente pusimos en orden las cuentas del Tesoro Nacional en el primer mes de gestión. A mitad de año pusimos en orden las cuentas del Banco Central y desde ese momento frenamos la emisión monetaria. Y no solo eso, sino que además hicimos cerca de 9.000 reformas estructurales. Por ejemplo, la baja de la inflación, donde pasamos de estar al borde de un nuevo proceso hiperinflacionario, es decir, la inflación viajaba al 1,5% diario. Hoy es 1,5% la inflación, pero en términos mensuales.
First time the crowd applauded, they're pretty quiet crowd.
Permitió que deje de ser un flagelo para la Argentina. Hay que tener en cuenta que el impuesto inflacionario es uno de los impuestos más regresivos que existen y eso, por ejemplo, nos permitió la baja de la inflación, los mecanismos de contención social del Ministerio de Capital Humano y la recuperación de la economía, con lo que tuvo aparejado en términos de mejora de salarios reales. En este lapso que nosotros llevamos en el gobierno, la pobreza pasó del 57% al 30%, es decir, 12 millones de argentinos salieron de la pobreza. Y en materia de indigencia, hoy 6 millones de argentinos que antes no comían, hoy sí comen porque salieron de la indigencia. A su vez, en paralelo, somos el primer gobierno en los últimos 123 años de historia que tiene déficit cero después del pago de intereses. Entendimos que la raíz de todos los males de la economía argentina era el déficit fiscal, producto de la adicción al gasto público. Al igual que Paraguay, entendimos que equilibrar las cuentas y mantenerlas en orden debía ser la columna vertebral de cualquier proceso de cambio genuino. Al fin y al cabo, ningún proyecto, cualquiera sea su tipo, puede construirse sobre la base de gastar más de lo que se recauda. Las veces que se ha intentado, ha terminado indefectiblemente en catástrofe, tal cual ha quedado registrado en la triste historia de nuestro país durante el último siglo. De hecho, Argentina ha probado esa receta, que tiene el nombre de la receta keynesiana, que no es ni más ni menos que decir que es bueno el déficit fiscal, que es bueno la manipulación de la tasa de interés vía política monetaria, regulaciones y cercenamientos de libertades y controles. Y la verdad es que Argentina probablemente haya sido el país que más lo aplicó en la historia. Y la consecuencia es clara, de ser un país desarrollado, después de casi un siglo de estar aplicando estas medidas descabelladas, Argentina se convirtió en un país subdesarrollado, una cosa nunca vista en la historia. Por eso, el modelo que proponemos nosotros está inspirado en las ideas de la libertad que hicieron grande a Occidente y que constituyen los cimientos de nuestra Constitución Nacional, que nos condujeron a nuestra era dorada a principios del siglo XX. Nosotros recurrentemente al momento de presentar nuestras ideas, frecuentemente trabajamos con la definición del liberalismo de quien es nuestro máximo exponente de la historia del liberalismo argentino, que es el profesor Alberto Venegas Lynch, hijo, que además tenemos el privilegio de que uno de sus hijos, Berti, sea diputado nacional por la provincia de Buenos Aires, y ahora hemos logrado que su hermano Joaquín, digamos, decida meterse en el barro de la política para ser candidato a senador por la provincia de Entre Ríos, senador nacional. Así es que, digamos, estamos llenando el Congreso de liberales puros. Y es por eso que en ese contexto es que toma aún mayor sentido la definición del liberalismo de nuestro máximo prócer de las ideas de la libertad, que dice: el liberalismo es el respeto irrestricto del proyecto de vida del prójimo, basado en el principio de no agresión.
Yeah, I hear you. What's up?
I was going to tell you because he was discussing the fact that they're trying to bring a lot of libertarians into Congress, just so that people know the big issue is not so much Congress per se, but the alliances Milei's sister had to do at the local level, because this is the big issue that we have. Okay, first you have to face the federal political pressure. Okay, then the fact that close by Buenos Aires, the cities around, if you want to see it, or the areas around, they're heavily Peronist, and the specific left-wing Peronist, which will be Cucas, Kirchneristas or Cucas, right? The other problem is, if you want help, I think it was Hoppe, the one that was saying like, oh, look, he hasn't decentralized anything. So the problem is that if you want to decentralize, this is hilariously bad, but it's still hilarious. If you decentralize, the province governors would actually centralize everything even more, because what they want is not just, oh, we want more power to ourselves. No. We want, if you decentralize stuff, you give me power to make the federal government spend even more, create even more money, subsidize more. So actually decentralizing, this is how weird Argentina is. Decentralizing right now would mean more centralization by the decision of the local governments, because the local governments want the center to do more, and they usually make the joke that in the provinces, there are such a thing as, I think they were like, what were the jobs? Oh, you're either a farmer, a rancher, or a government employee. Sometimes the localities have the entire family and extended family, one family being all of the bureaucrats of the of the town, and even the entire province. So be careful when we talk about decentralization. There are certain things that we wish the libertarians would happen, but they're simply unapplicable straight out to the political context that Milei is facing in Argentina. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of things. You know, he's mentioned Milton Friedman. He mentioned Alberto Venegas Lynch, which he always does. I mean, it's of course now, yes, and that family is just, they're a great libertarian, free market Austrian economist family. It's really amazing. Yes.
En defensa del derecho a la vida, a la libertad y a la propiedad, cuyas instituciones son la propiedad privada, porque sin propiedad privada no hay mecanismo de precio y por ende no hay cálculo económico, y eso conduce a la miseria. Mercados libres de intervención estatal, porque la intervención estatal lo que hace es contaminar la señal de precios. Mercados competitivos, pero entendido no en la interpretación neoclásica de la competencia perfecta, sino mercados competitivos entendido bajo la lógica de Baumol, Panzer y Willig, digamos que es la idea de los mercados disputables o mercados desafiables. En inglés es contestable markets.
You mentioned Bonar, Polog, and Willig. Is that some economists, right? I didn't know who those were. Do you know who those were?
Give me a second. Let's have some weird stuff. Okay, say it again.
He mentioned Ponar, and Willig, or some economists. I'm not sure what those were. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that he mentions his pronunciation is pretty bad. Sometimes even I have a hard time. Can you how to say? Okay, not forward it. Rewind it just a little bit. So let's see if I can catch.
I guess I can go back a little bit. There we go. See? Yeah. Bomal, Panar, and Willig.
Oh, the ones that just won the what's it? This is actually big. Give me a sec. This is hilariously awesome. Let me see. The Nobel Prize. Actually, it's kind of weird because all of the anti-libertarian economists are crying because the ones that won the.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Right here.
There's the. Okay, it's actually BAUMOL hyphen Willig, and it's the WILLIG, and it's the Willig effect in contestable markets.
Okay, yeah. Okay, rewind it a little bit. A little more.
Yeah, but see, it's right all there. The idea of contestable markets. There it is, right there. Yeah. So.
Play it again.
Yeah, but it's also but I searched and it's Bomal.
Yeah, Bomal, Panar, and Willig.
Like yes, and I didn't find Panar, but I found.
Yeah, they're closer on.
Yeah, contestable markets. Yeah, it's.
Play a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay, we'll start back up again. Yeah, I'm not. Oh, and it's Panzar. Okay, yeah. Oh. He's mentioning some academic paper, it looks like, yeah. Panzar, Panzar, scientific research. This is wild. Milei goes in, occasionally he'll cite some economists and hardly anyone knows who they are, but he goes from talking, yeah.
Yeah, like for example, like some of the stuff that he knows, some of the stuff that he knows about he's into economic growth, which is organization, but also he has a lot of micro stuff that he's really good, which I usually don't. I mean, I try not to bother because I notice that people that get too much micro end up messing up. How to say their macro. But he does come into I think about it, super technical stuff in regular presentations that even some economists are like, wait a minute, that's a little. We tend to call it that's a little too niche. Even for professional economists like myself, we're like, dude, like I don't even read those things, but yeah, okay, there you go.
Oh yeah. I'm not that deep in economics either. It's pretty wild. Well, yeah, so.
O mercados desafiables. En inglés es contestable markets. Y que, digamos, mapea muy bien con la idea de los austríacos en términos de competencia. A su vez,
I think I know what it is.
Digamos, como admitimos que los seres...
Yeah, what is it?
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how to spell.
I see.
Because I teach it without simple, but it's really interesting. Okay. The main kind of like Chicago view of markets from the 80s, to simplify things, they assume all of their analysis assumes a model that is called perfect competition that I deeply dislike. But it was functional for what they were doing in the 80s and 70s. I'm okay with it. So what they were saying is, okay, let's try to simplify things. Let's analyze the economy as if it has one good, and therefore, since everything's the same, the only thing that people compete against each other, is through prices. Okay, whoever gives the lower price, that's the one that wins. So far, so good, right? That's perfect competition. All information is given. Perfect competition model is all information is given. There's only one item, one type of item, if you wish. So the only differential is the price. But the competition is so strong that at some point all prices go back to only one type of price. So there's a lot of it. It worked for their purposes in the 80s and 70s. Austrian economists, which are usually the ones they return we tend to follow, and I would consider myself one kind of Hayekian Austrian economist like Milei. Since forever, we were saying no, not all information is given, and the whole point of the market process is to discover that information. So you're never going to have one type of item, even when you talk about like hamburger, like simple things like hamburgers and tacos. Not every company or every restaurant gives you the same, right? So we call that one. Some people call that one. Oh, let's not do perfect competition. It's way too rigid. Let's do. Some people call it imperfect competition or close substitute. Which, if you think about it, what is it that the economists really? When we talk about competition, in any case, podcasters when they compete against each other, they're not identical. There's sufficient differentials, but they're still competing for that time slot so that listeners go with it. So the Austrian view and the contested markets hypothesis, even though they're not competing directly per se, because they're not exactly the same items everywhere, right? Hamburgers, not all hamburgers are the same, but they still compete. Even, for example, different chicken sandwich with a regular hamburger to compete against each other because they're sufficiently close substitutes. Therefore, we cannot assume all the information is given. The Austrian view says, yes, we don't have to assume perfect competition because not all information is given. Prices change, delivering that information that is not given, that is not given to begin with. That's why he likes Baumol, Panzer, and Will's theory of contestable markets, because it's like we need to discover that information, and prices change precisely because prices and quantities change precisely because entrepreneurs are discovering their information, and by their actions, they're delivering more information. We're finding out that information. So the perfect competition model maybe was useful in the 70s when we had like inflations of 15% annually, and a quick way to kind of fix the economy in the 80s was to use those simplifications. But from the 90s on, thanks to the internet and all the technology, all competition is not so much identical items, but very close substitutes. Think about it. YouTube truly does compete against Twitter, even though they're not the same. But competing for your attention. So they have to know what they're doing. You know what I mean? And so
they compete for your time,
And so what he's saying is, in line with the Austrians, I'm going to use this mainstream kind of thing. Baumol, Panzer, and Will are very well known among the mainstream of economists. So we use their lingo. That's why he's really good. He learns much of libertarian and Austrian terminology, and then he turns around and said, okay, let me go to mainstream to see which things match, and let me use those ones so that I can properly communicate with the people that are not libertarian and the people that are not mainstream economists. So one of his successes that I have always admired him is that he is willing to use all type of models, all type of information, just to persuade people to side with him. And that's exactly what libertarians should do.
Yes. This paper was in 1982. It's called Contestable Markets and the Theory of Industry Structure.
Exactly.
I guess it's Baumol. He was actually a professor at NYU, although at Wikipedia says he's a Keynesian, and he also studied at the London School of Economics. So and John Panzer and Robert Willig, they're not even on Wikipedia at all. So that's all we can really say at this point. So let's
but his theory is consistent with libertarian views.
Yeah.
He just so he's going to use that lingo because others already understand it. Despite the fact that it's not Austrian.
Milei's a lot more subdued during this speech. He's not really a lot of. I wonder if Charlie.
I wonder if Charlie a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
What happened with his with his sister? You know that there was a big problem because nothing came out of it, but there was a lot of pressure against the sister from outside of his party and from within his party. And one of the big issues was and that's what he so stressed out. I think he left pretty much all the politics to his political alliances.
Yeah.
To his sister, and the sister had to do some very uncomfortable, and I don't like it at all. Yeah. Very uncomfortable alliances. Remember, locally, right? They're obsessed with the federal government doing stuff. Yeah. So she had to do alliances with people that you and I will never sign on anything. Yeah. But that's all there's available. That's the big, and this is kind of interesting for libertarians. we cannot privatize things unless we win elections. But in order to win elections, sometimes we have to side not just with right wingers that are kind of close to us. Some of the right, we sometimes have to side with right and left wingers. They're completely opposite, but just because of the context, we happen to agree upon one thing, and we're gonna have to like, okay, let's give them some time. Kind of like what you remember we discussed this one, like that. What is it so special about Peronism? That the Peronists are like, hey, I'm gonna win, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and I'm gonna do all of the alliances that I have to do. Once we win, we split the budget to keep everyone as happy as possible.
Yes.
How do you win against that unless you do exactly the same thing? There's no way that you can win all by yourself when the other guy knows how to make alliances. You have to make alliances and tell them, okay, we're gonna agree on everything. Actually, we're even if we agree on very little, there you go. You're gonna have some type of position in Congress, or you're gonna have a position in Congress locally, whatever it takes, so that we can, let's say, privatize airlines. Because without it, we couldn't privatize the airlines or something else. Oh, but you know, we have to give in, let's say, raise taxes on, I'm going to make up something, specifically chicken, because for some reason that deputy at the local level needs taxes on chicken because it's a competition they have against their family. I'm not joking. This is things that are true, right?
Yeah.
So in exchange for help me privatize airlines, I'll tax more of this or anything else, like some regulation. You have to do it. It's not an ideological thing. If you want to privatize this, you have to give up something else. If you don't want to give up something else, great, but you're giving up privatization. We just have to deal with it. And that's why I think, because he's not an expert on political alliances per se, he's just, he has the work. He said, you know what, sister, go take care of it. I'm not going to, I have a bunch of other things to worry about.
Okay. Yeah. So we still got about 21 minutes.
Humanos, gracias a Dios somos todos distintos. Esto favorece la división del trabajo, y la división del trabajo conduce a la cooperación social y a la prosperidad. Porque además, esto, más allá que estos principios que nos hicieron codearnos con las potencias del mundo y transformar la República Argentina en la tierra prometida de quienes buscaban un mejor porvenir, es muy importante como criterio al momento de definir no solo el norte de una política, sino cómo estructurar la política. Nuestra política está basada en criterios morales. Es decir, nuestro norte es que Argentina sea el país más libre del mundo, y sabemos que eso nos va a traer prosperidad. Pero hasta ahí, digamos, es como pareciera muy abstracto. Y en realidad, lo que cuenta al momento de tomar las decisiones es trabajar con un marco moral. Porque cuando ustedes plantean las cuestiones en términos morales, no hay lugares para grises. Las cosas que están bien, y las cosas que están mal. Lo voy a hacer con, perdón que sea autorreferencial, pero es para mostrar cómo nosotros tomamos decisiones con criterios morales. Nosotros cuando recibimos el gobierno, el Banco Central generaba un déficit cuasi fiscal de 10 puntos del PBI, y eso generaba inflación, eso generaba inestabilidad macroeconómica, y Argentina como consecuencia de ello tenía un cepo cambiario, es decir, no era posible hacer transacciones en moneda extranjera libremente, sin que fuera perseguido brutalmente por el aparato represivo del Estado. De hecho, están las...
What did you say there?
Yeah, okay. I want to make sure for the audience. Whenever you hear the word that sounds CEPO, it's CEPO.
Yes.
CEPO, CEPO is capital controls. They control not just the exchange rate, which is pretty bad already, but also what you can invest on, what you cannot invest on. And those are the things that Milei has been getting rid of it. Even if sometimes they have to bring back some other one, he reduced the amount of capital controls like crazy. So because they're pretty bad for growth, the problem is that the Peronistas and Kirchneristas love to have control over everything, even if it's damage.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that explanation. So, yeah.
Imágenes,
You're gonna hear it a lot.
digamos, del año 2023, gente que se les llama arbolitos, que hacen compra y venta de divisas en la calle y eran perseguidos por la policía. Y la realidad es que esos controles de cambio son verdaderamente siniestros, porque en primer lugar, si uno se gana su dinero de manera honesta, ¿qué potestad o qué facultad tiene un funcionario en decir en qué lo puede gastar o no uno? O sea, uno podría gastar el fruto de su trabajo en lo que le dé la gana mientras que sea legal. Ese es el primer punto. El segundo punto es que, dada la depreciación que se llevaba sistemáticamente la moneda, era una...
Yeah, what's going on?
Oh, you see, I know, for example, capital controls.
Yeah.
You had a lot of things, but one of the one that people would see on a daily basis, and I experienced it when I went to Buenos Aires in 2023, is, I don't know if you're familiar, when you will make it to back in, before Milei, when you would have your dollars with you and you wanted local pesos, the best rate had to be in the black market. And so, because CEPO, which is capital controls, had prohibited for you to exchange dollars or pesos freely, you had to always go through government channels, and they will actually give you super good exchange rate. Let's say, in order to get $1 on the streets in the black market, you need, let's say, like 1,000 pesos. That government would say, no, come over here. For every dollar you give me, I'm gonna give you, let's say, 400 pesos. Pretty good, right? And the guy would say, but it's limited to $200 a month. It's nothing. You know, imagine if you want to say more than $200 in dollars instead of pesos. That's nothing. So it was real messy. Black market starts to expand, and actually, I experienced this in the city or anywhere else. Arbolitos means like little trees, because they call it trees because anyone that wants to, like, on the black market, exchange pesos for dollars, those arbolitos, it's a little trees, if you want to call them that way, they're trees because they're green, and the dollars happen to be green. That's why they call it. But it had to be, for example, the one that I experienced in one of the main streets. All of the kiosks, I think that will be the ones where they say magazines on the streets, and flower shops on the streets, the little kiosks. You actually make a line to buy flowers, but instead of giving you flowers, they will pass you to the back of the kiosk, and in a small little room, you will go in with your dollars, and then a lady was kind of like rude, chatty, real nice, and all that kind of stuff. She was counting the amount of pesos that she needed to give you, and they will start talking to us. So some friends from Spain, we met over there in Buenos Aires, and they hear the accent, the Spanish mainland Spain accent is very strong, so they immediately recognize and start talking about it. Oh, where are you guys from? You should imagine doing in the black market, chit-chatting with the lady about exchange rates and then where we were from and all that kind of stuff. We had to do that because it was illegal. Actually, we tend to make the joke. There's a video where there's a federal police operation where they want to go in and close as many black market exchange houses, the arbolitos, the little trees. And we used to make the jokes. It says, you can complain about Milei's monetary policy all you want, but remember, before Milei, monetary policy wasn't even about increasing or decreasing the amount of money. It was about literally putting people in jail because without the permission of the government, they wanted to get dollars for pesos. It was pretty wild. And one of the one that I actually used for classroom teaching, I showed the students a couple of years ago. They started to train dogs not to recognize drugs so that they can, like, check cars for drugs, but they train them to discover or recognize physical dollars. So they will go through the cars, and if the car started to bark, the dog started to bark, that meant that they had dollars inside and they were illegal. for them to move around and all that kind of stuff. Think about it. We complain about the Fed, which we should complain because their monetary policy is terrible. Imagine being in Argentina where the monetary policy straight up is you can't have dollars, and if you have dollars, we're gonna send you the dogs, and we're gonna send you the police on a daily basis. This is the things that he got rid of, and even if the economy wasn't gonna recover, which already has recovered, by the way, that's already a huge jump for the well-being of everyone because they can freely change dollars if they want to. And also remember that he stopped all of the political manifestations. Is that how you call it? When people go and complain, I forgot how you call it. Political, in Spanish we call it marchas. It's another. But
machinations.
What?
Machinations.
No. Like, imagine like in public, they'll close a street to and then walk through the street to complain about some policy. I forgot how you call it in English. I always forget it.
Oh, they'll just block traffic is what you're saying.
Yeah, they used to block traffic to do their political statements or whatever on a daily basis, for sure, weekly basis. He stopped all that together, besides reducing the amount of capital controls and letting people exchange. Those things are huge, independent of everything else, because the Argentinian people were not concerned about libertarian concerns. They were saying, if you're a libertarian and you fix this, I'm going to get you in. If you're not a libertarian and you fix this, I'm still going to get you in. So no matter what you are, please fix it. Get rid of capital controls. Thank you. And make sure that I can use the streets, because imagine walking around going to your job and you cannot ever know if you're going to make it on time, because at any moment, back in the days, they had random political activists. They could close the street so they can do their complaints and they be loud about it and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's a great explanation of what's going on here. It's definitely getting into the thick of things here. Okay, we got about 17 minutes left.
Destrucción de riqueza feroz, porque fíjense que si alguien en el año 2001 tenía $1,000, digamos, si quieren hacerlo al precio de hoy, si tenía $1,400 y 1,400 pesos, si se quedó con los $1,400, tiene $1,400. Ahora si se quedó con los pesos, hoy tendría $1. Consecuentemente, eso significa que implicaría también una pérdida de riqueza enorme y por ende una pérdida de bienestar enorme. Además, los controles se ponen para fijar un precio artificialmente bajo y eso básicamente lo que genera es un exceso de demanda de divisas. Y la contracara de ese exceso de demanda de divisas es un exceso de oferta en el resto de la economía, ya sea un exceso de oferta en el mercado de bonos que deriva en que el precio de los bonos sea muy bajo y por ende la tasa de interés muy alta y por ende el riesgo país muy alto. De hecho, cuando nosotros ganamos las elecciones, el riesgo país estaba en los 3.000 puntos básicos. Ahora esas altas tasas de interés genera descoordinación, es decir, el riesgo país genera descoordinación intertemporal entre ahorro e inversión y eso hace que caiga tanto el consumo como la inversión y por ende hunde la actividad económica. Al hundirse la actividad económica se retrae la demanda de trabajo. Al retraerse la demanda de trabajo, los salarios o son licuados por la inflación o son atacados por el desempleo o alguna combinación de ambos. De hecho, digamos, los salarios en Argentina cuando nosotros llegamos estaban en torno a los $300, hoy están en torno a los $1.100, $1.200. Por otra parte, esa situación lo que hace es que se genere pobreza y de hecho cuando se sinceraban las variables, se pasaba de la frecuencia semestral a mensual y además se sinceraban los precios porque había controles de precios, la verdadera pobreza que nosotros heredamos era del 57%, es decir, una verdadera catástrofe. Por lo tanto, para nosotros era fundamental sanear el balance del Banco Central y liberalizar el mercado de cambios.
Can I stop it a little bit?
Digamos, entonces frenamos.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, can I share so that I can share the Argentine country risk?
Yeah, you can share that, yeah.
Let me see if I can figure it out. So our audience, please be patient. Studio. Share the screen. Okay.
Or I can share the screen.
Yeah, give us a second. Okay, can you guys see, right? I'm sharing right now, right?
Okay, yeah, hold up. Yep.
How do you know if I'm sharing? Looks like there you go. That's
Okay,
one.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, you guys can see my. So think about this. Before Milei, this is if you look at 15 to from April 14 all the way down to like around April 17, you have Macri going on. When the Peronistas win again, as you can imagine, it shoot up. Even without the pandemic made it even worse. Then finally stabilizes, but it stabilizes at a higher level even after the pandemic, which things were really bad. By 2022, spikes up to close to 3,000 points. And from Milei winning just right after 23, look at how he just collapses. This is really bad. And we were suffering through this up into like April. But now with the loan, and you notice even more just that this one is old. When the elections, some local elections were lost and were won by Peronistas, by left-wing Peronistas, you can see them pick it up. Now it's coming down, and that's fantastic. But what's the problem? That we need, he's doing a great job, but in order to make things significantly better, maintain inflation low, the country risk has to be super, super low. And whether people like it or not, they're going to have to accept the friendship between Milei and Trump has actually won and has made good.
Yeah.
So there's just no way out of it. Whatever you think of Trump, it doesn't really matter. The question is, yes, has it been helpful? Yes. This is a key moment that he was, he got it right all along. I mean, regardless of the ideologically purity, the strategy did work.
Okay, yeah. So we'll bring the speech back. Yep. Keep going. Yep.
Vamos con la emisión monetaria a mitad del año 2024 y después en un programa inédito con el Fondo Monetario Internacional procedimos a sanear el activo del Banco Central, porque básicamente lo que se hacía en Argentina es que los distintos gobiernos colocaban letras intransferibles en el Banco Central, títulos que no tenían valor de mercado, y se llevaban los dólares y por lo tanto dejaban sin respaldo básicamente los pesos que andaban dando vuelta, es decir, una suerte de default sobre los pesos. Y eso básicamente técnicamente se resuelve vía mayor inflación, es decir, y eso era lo que pasaba en Argentina. Por lo tanto, no solo que había que cortar con el problema de la emisión, sino que además también no era solo el problema del flujo, sino que también que había que corregir el problema del stock. Y eso nosotros lo hicimos con el acuerdo que celebramos con el Fondo Monetario Internacional y que lo firmamos a mitad de abril de este año, donde básicamente recibimos un paquete de apoyo donde el Tesoro esos dólares que recibió lo utilizó para cancelar deuda con el Banco Central, de modo tal de terminar con la estafa inflacionaria. Es decir, la deuda bruta no varía.
What?
Okay. If you look at the total debt of the Argentine Republic, you can see it going up. And so They're saying, wait, didn't he reduce the debt? No. What he did was this. There are different reasons why you have a government has to get debt. The first one is if they don't collect enough taxes to cover expenditures, they have to borrow money first. They stop that together, so that's great. But if you already have a stock, like a group of debt already existing, that debt is requesting interest to be paid, independent of whether the government is spending more than revenues or not. They needed to borrow money in order to continue to pay those interest rates. And one of the key issues was they went to the monetary fund, International Monetary Fund. I forgot how you pronounce it in English. But you get the point, right? There's an International Monetary Fund, borrowed dollars, and this was what was crazy. The treasury of the government of Argentina had to give those dollars borrowed to the central bank because the Central Bank of Argentina had debt from the government, paying ridiculous amount of interest rates, and on top of it was worthless because by law in Argentina, that debt the central bank had against the government's treasury was not transferable. So imagine this. Long time ago, the central bank had some dollars. The Peronistas and Kirchneristas went to the Central Bank of Argentina and say, hey, give me those dollars. Let me write down some debt to be paid off in pesos. The Central Bank of Argentina has no independence, so he had to obey the Peronista government, right? So think about this. They immediately caused very high inflation because the backing of the peso was not dollars anymore, which is the most liquid asset, like the one that people accept the most. They were backed by really bad debt from expenditures above revenue. That debt that was created was transferred to was given to the central bank, and the central bank will give all of its dollars to the treasury, and the treasury will use those dollars to exhaust them to the point of even using them to try to buy votes in last presidential election. Imagine the mess that Milei had to come along. So, in order to fix all the mess, they said, okay, we need to close the central bank. Went to borrow money, dollars specifically, give it to the central bank so that it is not in a situation. Let me try to remember how you call it. When you have more liabilities than assets, you're broke. Yeah.
More liabilities than assets is called debt.
Yeah, so it has more debts than assets. The central bank, the treasury had to go and say, let me put some dollars in the treasury, take away that debt that the treasury had that was paying ridiculous interest rates or whatever, and now the central bank has more assets than liabilities, and from then you can start the process of closing it down because you have a lot of assets. At the end of the process, when any assets, all the debts of the central bank are paid, and the assets, some assets are left, whatever is left over, that's given to the treasury back. But first, you have to have a sane, healthy central bank before you can close it down.
Yeah.
All this stuff, it's something that Milei had to take about 2 years to just kind of work it through. It can easily be, even though he's not creating new money, new pesos, those pesos can still be valued because out of the expectation of Peronistas winning again, that demand for those pesos, forget about the supply, the demand for pesos collapses, which means the value of the dollar went up and the value of the peso went down within the last couple of months. The only way to fix that, because it was like a risk. The problem wasn't that Milei was spending too much. It's just that investors were afraid of the future. They were treating the debt of Milei right now as if it was the debt of the future bad government of the Peronistas, because it looked like they could win. So that's why they needed Trump to come along and help them out with about $20 billion, I think. I'm not completely sure exactly how much. It doesn't have to be spent. This happened in the 90s, so it's not strange. Clinton helped Mexico with $50 billion of back then, which means it's a lot more right now. And gave it to them. And just by the fact that they have them, investors were like, "Oh, okay, you do have a lot of dollars. Let me go back to holding pesos. Whatever it happens, holding pesos is not that bad because you guys do have dollars covering all those pesos. That's what they're doing. And oddly enough, I think it's gonna come out right for the United States and for Argentina because what they're gonna end up doing is and BSET. That's the name of the Treasury Secretary of Trump, right? BSET or BSET. I don't remember if it was BSET or BSET. He said, "Oh well, to keep it simple, he's a finance guy. We're buying low and then we're gonna sell it high. They're gonna buy the peso when it's appreciating. Now it appreciates, and little by little they can start selling it off." So oddly enough, I find it fascinating. Obviously, a lot of people don't agree with it, but let's say economically speaking, it's fascinating because the U.S. government is using dollars to buy pesos. The pesos rise in value, so the Treasury Department that is buying dollars can sell the pesos more expensive little by little and collect a lot of dollars out of circulation, collecting more than the $20 billion that they gave. But only this is the interesting thing, only the United States government can do it. No other government in the world can do this. That's why it's so weird. And I understand why people feel uncomfortable, but the U.S. government can pull out some tricks that absolutely, and I hope everyone can understand it. The U.S. dollar allows, since it's the money of the world, allows the U.S. government to pull out some stuff that are impossible for any other government, and that's why it made sense that Milei had the U.S. government, including if when they were in power, they were still Milei was still getting along with them really well. He wasn't all that concerned, like, "Oh, Trump is gonna think bad of me." So no,
Yeah,
Clinton help out, and also the Biden administration help out a little bit, maybe not much, but you get the point. He was ready. I'm gonna say with the United States government, whether it's a libertarian thing to do or not, I'm gonna need those dollars right now. It doesn't. He sided with. He actually did a little bit of business with China because China offered a swap, which was a loan of yuans, and the yuans can quickly be swapped for dollars.
Yeah.
Like if you're gonna lend me yuans so I can have dollars, I'll accept it. I'm not gonna accept any specific request. I'm not gonna give up my sovereignty. But if you want to lend me dollars, I'm more than happy to take them. And he did. Okay. So he needed dollars from absolutely everywhere because every time he gets dollars, that demand for pesos increases because investors are like, "Oh, okay, you do have enough dollars to cover any problems. Let us use the peso." And that in itself appreciates the peso, and that in itself, since it makes it more strong, it controls inflation, it slows it down really heavily. So sorry for the technicalities, but this is actually huge. So you guys understand the huge problem that he had on the back because all of that was behind and how messy the central bank was.
Yes, it was messy. And, just for information, since we're in Paraguay, 5 years ago, one Argentine peso would get you almost 90 guaranis in Paraguay. And then by 1 year ago, one Argentine peso would get you about 8 of those. So that's the crash of Argentine versus Paraguayan currency.
Yeah, actually, the last couple of months has been appreciated. The Paraguayan, Guarani, right?
Yeah, the Guarani. Yeah, the Guarani. Yeah. Okay, let's go. Yeah, still got about 13 minutes left.
Pero cambia el acreedor. Pero lo más importante es dejar de estafar a los argentinos de bien que tenían pesos o que tienen pesos. Cuando nosotros propusimos esto, decían que no lo íbamos a hacer porque básicamente era el año electoral y que no había por qué correr este riesgo. Entonces, fíjense que ustedes ahí se enfrentan a una decisión de política económica donde tienen que pensar o en términos utilitaristas, ¿sí?, con una contraparte electoral, y por otro lado en hacer lo que es correcto, que es abrazar las ideas de la libertad y avanzar en la liberalización. Y así es que contra todo pronóstico que decían que nosotros no íbamos a levantar el cepo porque se trataba de un año electoral, cuando nosotros conseguimos el financiamiento que nos daba tranquilidad sobre el balance del Banco Central, básicamente nosotros decidimos quitar el cepo, porque no se negocia con el mal. Cuando ustedes
Yes, you don't negotiate with evil. This is a really
ustedes
good
saben
one.
lo que es correcto y lo que está mal. Perdón que estoy desviándome de la base de lo que traía como discurso, pero hay un trabajo que lo recomiendo enfáticamente, un trabajo del profesor Jesús Huerta del Soto que se llama La teoría de la eficiencia dinámica. Lo recomiendo, pero muy enfáticamente. De hecho, cuando lo condecoré en su visita a la Argentina, justamente hablé de la importancia de este trabajo del profesor Huerta de Soto. Porque el profesor Huerta de Soto lo que dice es, la teoría de la eficiencia dinámica tiene que ver con hallar aquel sendero que maximiza el crecimiento económico, vendría a ser. Pero lo que señala también es que algo que es eficiente no puede ser que sea injusto. Es decir, ustedes por el óptimo de Pareto o en nombre del óptimo de Pareto no pueden estar cometiendo injusticias y aberraciones porque supuestamente eso utilitaristamente.
It's talking about Huerta de Soto and the theory of dynamic efficiency.
It's fantastic. Just so you guys know, Huerta de Soto will be like his mentor.
Oh yeah.
To figure out what we imagine. If you guys know the relationship between Hayek and Mises, Mises was the mentor.
Yeah.
Hayek.
Yeah. He's Milei's teacher. Yeah, I know exactly who that is. Yeah, there's if you go to Huerta de Soto's website, there is a little chart on the theory of dynamic efficiency. That's
and so you guys know, for Spanish libertarians like me, Austrian economists, Spanish speakers, Huerta de Soto it's our beginning. We call it our beginning and the end. When I was doing my master's degree and I was doing homework back in, I don't know, 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
I was doing my homework and I was listening to his lectures. I was barely learning, I knew economics, but I was really learning Austrian economics. So he's literally in my veins. He was, Huerta de Soto said, the whole class, like his classes, he puts them all online. And how to say, and they're completely online. Actually, there's some of them are in English. Some guys from UK translated all of his stuff so that you can actually sit down and watch his entire university classes and learn all of this stuff directly from him, not just in Spanish, but also in English. Highly recommend you guys look for Huerta de Soto in English, and you will find some stuff. And his point, which he's going to continue, just understand is, it's not just that it's economically efficient, which is fantastic, but we need to make sure that it's also just. And one of the reasons why Milei won is because he would always say, I'm going to do this for two reasons. One, because it's very efficient, it can maximize economic growth. Great. But it would also be just, because if it wasn't just, it was just not worth it. And from then on, he would say, we need to emphasize not just efficiency, but also justice. We need to have good aesthetics. The way that we communicate has to be proper. The way that we dress has to be proper. Because human beings are not just worried about economic efficiency. Human beings, voters, and allies, and people that we can work with, they want a society that covers everything, not just economic efficiency, culture, personality, leadership, all of the stuff together. So. And Huerta Soto is he emphasizes a lot of the ethics of it. What I'm teaching you is not just efficient, but it's also good. It is ethical and it's just. By pushing that, libertarians in Argentina are not seen as this mechanical thing, academics trying to figure out the most efficient solution. No, they're human beings that are trying to communicate to others. This is a better life. It's more efficient, it's more productive, and it's just for you and for your family. And that's a message that has to be said by libertarians, including the libertarians in the States.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's so brilliant on that regard.
Le va a dar algo mejor. Y eso no tiene sentido. De hecho, hay un libro maravilloso de Israel Kirchner que se llama Capitalismo, Creatividad y Justicia Distributiva, que cuando arranca la discusión dice, sabemos que el sistema capitalista y libre de empresa es más productivo, ¿sí? Pero nos acusan de que el sistema es injusto. Y lo que dice Israel Kirchner es cierto que somos más productivos, somos más eficientes, pero si el sistema no es justo, no vale la pena defenderlo. Y lo que hace justamente en ese libro Israel Kirchner es mostrar que la combinación del principio de apropiación de Locke, sumado a la idea de Hayek de los mercados como proceso de descubrimiento, es decir, el capitalismo de libre empresa no solo es más eficiente, sino que además es el único sistema que es justo. Y lo que deviene del trabajo de Huerta de Soto es que si ustedes van y abrazan los valores justos, los valores éticos, la ética judeo-cristiana, que es la ética de Occidente, que es lo que está detrás del capitalismo de libre empresa, eso va a ser eficiente. Es decir, lo más interesante del trabajo de Huerta de Soto es que ustedes podrían meter a una economía en un sendero dinámicamente eficiente, es decir, que maximice el crecimiento económico y no necesitan saber de economía. Lo único que necesitan es abrazar los valores morales correctos, es decir, gobernar con criterios éticos y morales acorde a los valores de Occidente, es decir, la cultura judeo-cristiana, que es lo que está detrás de la base de los fundamentos del liberalismo, y es por eso que trae tanta prosperidad. Y de hecho, en el caso argentino, en este aspecto, vale destacar que durante las últimas décadas hemos vivido el proceso inverso. El talento argentino se vio obligado a buscar en otras tierras aquello que su propio país dejó de darle, la posibilidad de cumplir sus sueños, de llevar a cabo un proyecto de vida. Miren, sin ir más lejos, la idea de la justicia social, ¿no?, que es nuestro modelo antagónico, por decirlo de alguna manera. Y la justicia social en realidad es injusta, porque ¿acaso alguien aquí adentro está a favor del robo? Nadie está a favor del robo. De hecho, uno de los mandamientos dice, no robarás. ¿Sí? Y no solo eso, bueno, también, digamos, a la luz de Charlie Kirk y a la luz del principio de no agresión también es no matarás antes, ¿no? Digo, para que vean qué es lo que está del otro lado. Pero no solo eso, sino que además, ¿quién estaría frente a un trato desigual frente a la ley? Uno de los grandes logros del liberalismo es haber planteado la igualdad ante la ley. Y eso de robarle a uno para darle a otro, la verdad es que eso está mal. Por eso es muy interesante un par de reflexiones que hizo Thomas Sowell al respecto. Dice, la justicia social es envidia.
That's Thomas Sowell, by the way, not Thomas Scholl, which Milei has mentioned before. The great economist who's written probably 50 books. Yeah, and he's over 90 and he's still putting them out.
Más retórica. Y la pregunta que se hace Thomas Sowell es, ¿desde cuándo la envidia dejó de ser un pecado capital para convertirse en una virtud? Porque una de las características que lleva, digamos, la justicia social, que es la política de la envidia, es a la destrucción de una sociedad. Por lo tanto, este tipo de cuestiones son fundamentales al momento de tomar decisiones, porque uno lo lleva a un plano que es ético y moral, y ahí está claro lo que está bien y lo que está mal. No sé, le puedo hacer otro ejemplo, lo que tiene que ver con nuestra política de seguridad. Y miren, el que las hace las paga. Es decir, y bien que funciona. Entonces, si ustedes se fijan en cada una de nuestras políticas, en el fondo todas tienen un trasfondo ético y moral. Y eso es lo que hace que de la economía hayamos hecho el recorte fiscal más grande de la historia, y cuando todos pronosticaban una brutal recesión, el PBI entre puntas en la frecuencia mensual creció 6%. En el primer semestre, en promedio, creció 7%. No solo que la inflación bajó del 1,5 diario al 1 mensual, es decir, de venir de niveles que parecía que Argentina iba a entrar en una escalada que podría haber llegado al 17.000, 18.000%, hoy viaja en torno al 20% y esperamos que para el año que viene, a mitad de año, la inflación haya desaparecido. Y en todo ese proceso, 12 millones de argentinos salieron de la pobreza. 6 millones de argentinos empezaron a comer cuando antes no comía. Así es que no es que hemos completado todo, todavía nos falta muchísimo, pero estamos claros que siguiendo los valores éticos y morales correctos, Argentina va a ser grande nuevamente.
And as he mentioned, Thomas Sowell, about how social justice and the politics of envy. There's not a lot of lighting in this room. I can't see who anybody is. Can you?
I cannot recognize anyone there.
Yeah, well, the room's so dark, it's impossible to see who these people are.
Yeah.
It looks like it's a fairly small room, too.
That I don't know. I don't
Maybe maybe a few hundred people in here, but it's hard to tell, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Además, es importante entender que no hay terceras vías en este camino. Cualquier opción moderada, entre muchas comillas, es funcional al sistema decadente que con tanto esfuerzo estamos dejando atrás. Esto está en un trabajo maravilloso de Ludwig von Mises que se llama Intervencionismo y el subtítulo es El mito de la tercera vía. Mises dice, hay capitalismo de libre empresa y hay socialismo real. Cualquier solución intermedia tiende a socialismo y eso es pobreza. Es decir, esto quiere decir que simplemente que no hay opción moderada entre, por ejemplo, entre el superávit y el déficit. No hay tercera vía entre un Estado abocado a sus funciones esenciales y uno con un número creciente de atribuciones, que hace un montón de cosas y las hace todas mal. Los argentinos ya ensayamos en el pasado cambiar de forma gradual, haciendo concesiones y dejando sin abordar aspectos del pasado que estaban mal. Esa experiencia fracasó y de ello nos tenemos que llevar un aprendizaje. No hay cambio a medias. O hacemos las reformas profundas que se necesitan o nos quedamos a medio camino y nos volvemos a desilusionar. Por eso es que digo que las terceras vías son inconducentes. Cualquier intermedio, por más racional que parezca, deja abierta la puerta a lo peor del pasado. Afortunadamente, si Argentina crece y nuestro pueblo nos acompaña en las elecciones, seremos capaces de hacer grandes cosas con el pueblo paraguayo, de cuyo ejemplo tenemos mucho que aprender. De hecho, como fieles adeptos a la libertad de mercado, creemos que cada una de nuestras naciones tiene mucho que aportarle a la otra, ya que es mediante la cooperación y el intercambio voluntario que los pueblos crecen y prosperan. Justamente por eso es vital que existan espacios como CPAC, que contribuyen a la propagación y defensa de las ideas que han hecho grande a Occidente. Muchísimas gracias, estimado, por la tarea tan enorme, impresionante que llevan. Además, cuántos lindos elogios te dio tu mujer, Matt, ¿eh? Aplausos para ellos. En este sentido, en un contexto de creciente incertidumbre en el mundo libre, nada mejor que apostar al intercambio pacífico de ideas como forma de reconectarnos con el legado de nuestros antepasados, gigantes sobre cuyos hombros estamos parados y de cuyo sacrificio en nombre de la humanidad hoy gozamos innumerables beneficios. Que su coraje e ingenio nos sirvan de guía a quienes queremos, en medio de esta batalla cultural entre el bien y el mal, exaltar los valores que nos hicieron prósperos. Quiero volver a dejar mi recuerdo por Charlie Kirk, darles gracias a todos por estar presentes, que Dios los bendiga a todos, que las fuerzas del cielo nos acompañen y ¡viva la libertad, carajo!
That was a good speech. You know, I think he was thinking a lot about Charlie during that speech. He mentioned him 3 times, which is why he was pretty somber. Definitely not as animated or lively as he usually is.
Well, one of the main reasons, just so you guys know, one of the big problems that he's facing is that it's just getting out of him, like the pressure. That's why. So and he's going through it. So right now you ain't gonna see him like super like upbeat, simply because he's just tired of so much politics. He had to leave everything to his sister. So just be aware, guys. He's not doing well. Well, he's taking care of himself by distancing himself a little bit, and that helps a lot. But just be ready. He's not gonna be the typical Milei going wild about everything and anything. Yeah, it's not gonna happen in the next couple of months. Yeah, the pressure is huge, and the Trump administration helped a lot to improve things. But obviously, he's not out of the because actually, you know, that I said, and this makes all the sense in the world. When they asked Trump today or yesterday, if the other side wins, would you still be helping? And said no. And the answer is simple. It's nothing against the Argentine people. The Peronistas and Kirchneristas have openly said, if we win, we're gonna do 2 things. I'm not joking. We're not gonna pay we're gonna default on it, and we're gonna expropriate arable land in the countryside. We're like, dude, you want to destroy society? What's going on? Openly said, we're not gonna pay. That's it. See, right? And obviously investors ran away like crazy. So he's gonna be okay, but he's not gonna be upbeat in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's we'll see what happens. I mean, you know, we're 12 days away from the midterms on the 26th, and hopefully we'll get some good people in the Congress. I honestly don't know what's going to happen, but he's going to need to get a lot more people, and then maybe he's going to implement this program. It's been an uphill battle, and the most important thing is I think he's changing minds no matter what happens. I mean, he really is.
Oh, okay, yeah. There were some people sharing screenshots from like family members, and they don't know anything about politics. They were saying, "Look, the last 3 months, I've been literally spending the same amount of money on my grocery bill. Some prices go up and down and whatever, but think about it. Some prices go up, and other ones go what? Down in Argentina? Nobody heard of that before. It was just unheard of that there were 1 or 2 prices going down. So some people were saying he can do whatever he wants. I have been paying the same thing for 3 months. He was able to figure out how to control inflation. We're still voting for the guy, but obviously that's very regional. That's the whole point why they have to go do uncomfortable alliances outside of at the province level.
Yeah,
it's because it's very in certain places he's gonna win like a that's like no problem. In other places, it's gonna be very difficult. Very difficult, and he still needs those areas, so he has to negotiate no matter what.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, you said you had about an hour and a half, and we just got through that speech. That was definitely a more interesting speech. I don't know if he's going to give a speech. You know, today was Charlie Kirk's birthday, and he's in the U.S. I don't know if he'll say anything in honor of Charlie Kirk. I'd like to see Milei give a eulogy. I think that'd be quite interesting. I bet he'd really do it well. Whereas when Trump gives a eulogy, he just makes it all about himself.
Milei is better at that, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, Milei is really gracious to all the people around him. Well, where can we find you out there, Aaron? You're on Twitter. That's about it, right?
On Twitter, yeah, that's it. That's the place where I have everything. It's so comfortable to put everything in order that honestly, I was doing even some Substack stuff, but even now they let you do articles, so you can actually have everything in one place.
Yes.
Well, yes, follow me on Twitter. We can discuss these topics. Be ready. I'm an Austrian economist. I'm a libertarian economist. I have a voting line. And I'm super flexible, like Milei. I don't have any problems making alliances with people that I don't agree 100%, simply because they're priorities. I understand. I understand Latin America really well. Most people don't care about ideology. I'm talking about 99% of people in Latin America. and therefore they do alliances all the time. If you don't do alliances, you're doomed, because your enemy will. If you don't do that, your enemy will.
You got to turn them into your useful idiots, or they'll turn you into their useful idiots. So anyway,
or you're useful for everyone for not doing anything.
Please like this show, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel Escape from the Village, check out my Substack. And people are giving me money at buymeacoffee.com. Thank you for all your support. And that's really been an exciting time for Javier Milei. Thank you, Ááron Sepúlveda-Cué. I'm Chris Baker. We are out. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.